Hi and welcome to Retro Eric. This is the PicoMEM 2. I'm not gonna make a review video today, but instead an instruction video. In case you don't know what the PicoMEM 2 is, I can tell you that it's a single 8-bit ESA card which replaces a lot of other cards and gadgets. And I'll list them: XT IDE for storage, Gotek for floppy emulation. It's an extra memory card for your old PC or XT. It emulates 7 different sound cards from Game Blaster to Gravis Ultrasound. It replaces a network card, USB joystick and mouse, and soon USB keyboard. If you have the OLED display, it will show you boot post codes, and it has a real-time clock with a battery. And this is only the beginning. Freddy V is adding more features to this card as we speak. So let's start by going through all the menus one by one. And for the demonstration, I will be using my EuroPC with 512 kilobytes of memory. It's running a 9.54 megahertz NEC V20 CPU. Okay, as you just saw, there was a PicoMEM boot screen, basically telling you the settings we had. And we could press S to enter setup. And that's where we are now. We can read the build number for the firmware on the PicoMEM, and as we can see, it's 2026, June 16th. The system memory before the PicoMEM is adding memory to it is 512 kilobytes. It has detected a built-in floppy drive and 0 hard drives on my EuroPC. So that's the main screen. One of the most important things, at least for an old PC or XT machine, is adding more memory. If I turn off everything, and this is basically how it is the first time you turn on the PicoMEM. It will at the top list how much conventional memory we have, and then after the 640 barrier or line, we'll see the upper memory, and it will show us what it has detected. The first thing I always do is to enable PMRAM extension. And when we enable that, we enabled 256 kilobytes of PMRAM or Pico RAM. That is built-in RAM on the Pico chip. So that's the fastest type of RAM the PicoMEM have. And what we saw, it fills up the conventional memory up to 640 kilobyte on this 512 kilobyte PC, and then it added 128 more kilobytes at the beginning of the upper memory. And the reason it could do that is that this area on my PC with a CGA graphics card does not have anything at that memory address. So that's why this was possible. If you have a VGA card, you will probably see that your VGA card has occupied most of that memory space. And then you can also use this toggle here, ignore video segment, and you can ignore that if that video segment is used for your VGA graphics. But this is CGA, so we can leave it off. So with this setup, I will have a lot more memory than before. But before we go into DOS to show that, I will also turn on EMS. And if we turn that on the default port, it will give us 4 megabytes of EMS RAM. One other thing I always turn on is maximum conventional memory. We can also turn on, of course, the PSRAM. I'll show you what that does. When I toggle the PSRAM extension, you will see it will fill up more of the upper memory area. But to utilize that extra memory in that upper memory area, you would need to use tools to load programs, drivers mostly, to that memory address. But on my EuroPC, there are, as far as I know, no tool that will work and do that. If I'm wrong, let me know in the description. But on a 386 and above, you can use EMM 386 to load drivers up to that area too. But I'll leave it off on my EuroPC and I'll press escape. Yes, there is no save button here in PicoMEM 2. Everything you do is immediately saved. So when we're ready, we just press escape. And here we see the PicoMEM BIOS menu. And then we also see the PMEMM memory driver being loaded. And it also tested the memory. And now you can see my DOS is loaded, and at the top you can see that I'm using ForDOS as the command interpreter instead of command com. And ForDOS saw that I now have EMS memory, so it used that memory, or at least 112K of that memory, instead of using ordinary conventional memory. When we type mem, you will see how much memory I have. I now have 336 kilobyte conventional memory on this PC. The reason for that is that I added 128 kilobytes on top of my 512 to max out the normal conventional memory, and then I added some extra memory in the upper memory block, and I chose to maximize conventional memory. And now we have 336 kilobytes. Isn't that cool? And we can also see that total expanded memory is 4 megabytes, and some of it is used, so we are just almost has 4 megabytes free. Isn't that cool? Let's take a look at my config sys, and what we will see there on line 3 is device equals PMEMM.exe/n. That is the EMS memory driver, and /n is for no testing. So that's how easy it is to add EMS memory and conventional memory when using the PicoMEM tool. Let's go back into the setup. I'm restarting with Ctrl-Alt-Delete and pressing S to enter setup. Next out is disk. Under this menu, we can emulate floppy and hard drive. The emulation of the floppy is basically the same as a Gotek. We can choose to put our disk in floppy drive A or in floppy drive B. Also, if it is a bootable floppy, we can choose to boot from the floppy also. We can also add 4 hard drives. I have added 2 images here, as you can see. The next important thing is the PicoMEM boot code. If this is off, like it is by default, it will boot your existing hard drive. That could be the original MFM hard drive you have on your PC, or it could be a modern XT IDE disk. It doesn't matter. But if we choose to use the PicoMEM boot code, that will win, and we will be booting from the images on the SD card on the PicoMEM. We can also, if we want, create new empty images directly from the menu system. I'm not going to show you that. I will fix what I did here, and I will go back to DOS. If I press A now, I will boot from the floppy. I didn't do that because I'm going to show you the next neat thing. Just as with GoTech, you can switch or change floppies on the fly. You can do that also on the PicoMEM. If you're using the OLED display and the buttons, you can use those, or you can use our keyboard combination. There is one important tool you need to learn if you have the PicoMEM, and that is PMInit. And on my machine, I think that is a bug. I need to run PMInit/K to reinstall the keyboard shortcut. I think my Norwegian keyboard driver messes it up. Anyway, when it is installed, I can press Ctrl+Shift+F1 to get information, basically the same information as when we are booting the machine. Or I can press Ctrl+Shift+F2 and I can choose whatever floppy image I want to now have in my drive. So now I'm using the virtual floppy, and this works even on my PC that has a built-in floppy on drive A. So the PicoMEM, if you choose to emulate a floppy on A, that will override, or it will win over the built-in floppy drive. That was easy. There is one more cool feature when it comes to storage, and that is PMDFS. This tool will map the SD card on the PicoMEM as a drive letter, and you can also map the USB drive if you have connected a USB drive to the USB port. I've done that now, so I will use this command, S for SD card. My D drive is occupied, as you might remember, so I'll use E. And for the USB drive, I will use F. And let's see, yes, it has installed SD card on drive E and the USB drive on drive F. So let's test the SD card first. Schmuck, there you have it. That's easy and very handy. And let's try the USB. Look at that, and look how fast it is. And this is a 1 GB USB drive, and it was super easy to access. But this isn't the best news. I can now take out the USB drive, put it in my Apple or my Macintosh or my PC and whatever, copy some files over, put the USB stick back into the USB port, and just continue using it. I don't have to uninstall and install again or whatever. It just works. So this is super easy to transfer files to your PicoMEM 2 based computer now. Wasn't that cool? Okay, back in the menu again. I'll remove the floppy, and we'll go to the next thing. And maybe for many of you this is the most important feature of the PicoMEM, and that is all the 7 different audio cards or music cards you can emulate on the PicoMEM. We have a global switch to turning everything on and off. I've also turned on Adlib. It's just an on and off switch. It will always use the default Adlib port 388. When it comes to the CMS, we can choose different ports, just as you could on the original Game Blaster. Default port that most games use and look for the CMS is port 210, so we'll leave it at 210. Tandy can be off, and we can choose 3 different ports. I don't know why that, because all the games I tried have to have 0C0. It could also emulate a strange audio card that few people have heard about, that is called Mindscape. I don't have any way to test that, so I'll leave that off. And then it says, for Covox/Sound Blaster, use PMInit. The text could also have stated the same for the Gravis Ultrasound. Because the rest of the sound cards, we have to use PMInit to activate. But these are the ones we can activate through the setup. I'm going back to those again, and let's try some music. The easiest way to test Tandy and Adlib is just to fire up a game that supports it. So I'll choose Planet X3 because I can choose Plantronics there and get some nice graphics on this PC. And let's start with Adlib. Let's try starting it again. This time we will choose Tandy sound. How cool is that? For our next test, I will use ModMaster XT. That is basically a mod player, but it can also play other stuff or formats, and it's made by the same Freddy V that made the PicoMEM. So we've already tested Adlib and we tested Tandy, so let's test some CMS or Game Blaster music. And before we start, let's check the settings. So T for output, going over to the Synth, and we can see that OPL is enabled on port 388. The Tandy is enabled on CMS, which we are testing now. It's also enabled. Enter, and let's play. How cool is that? So that was the 3 easiest sound card to set up. For using other cards, we need to use PMInit. And I'm just typing PMInit to get some help. And we can see that there are options here to turn on and off Adlib, CMS, and Tandy, but we don't need to do that. They are already on. We will now try to turn on the next thing we will try, and that's the Covox. So PMInit / CVX and 1 to turn it on. Easy, and it says there everything is okay. It's enabled on port 7BC. Let's again start ModMaster. Let's press T to just check that Covox is enabled, and it is enabled on port LPT1, and it also says the address 3BC, and the frequency is set to 1600. I know from previously testing this that 1600 is a bit too much for this EuroPC, but if you have a faster CPU you can use 16,000 Hertz if you want. And let's play a song. And that was it. That's how easy it is to enable the Covox. So now when you have Covox games or Disney Sound Source or any other type of printer port device, you can use the Covox emulation. So we're back to PMInit. Now I'm gonna turn off Covox. I don't know if it's necessary, but I'll do it. And we will turn on Sound Blaster. So SB1 will turn on, and then we can try how our mod sounds like when we're using the Sound Blaster for digitized sound. And again, we press T for output, and now we can see that the Sound Blaster, it has found the Sound Blaster. It's already figured out. It's on DMA interrupt 5 and 10,000 Hertz. And let's keep those, and let's play the same ALF music track. Okay, I could have chosen a mod with better samples, but this is not a review, this is just showing how everything is done. But the sound is very, very good. We need to test one more thing, and that is the Gravis Ultrasound. So I'll turn off Sound Blaster. Actually, that was not necessary because I know from before that we can have Sound Blaster and Gravis Ultrasound at the same time. But anyway, Gus and 1 to turn on Gus. Again, ModMaster XT from Freddy V. Let's go into the S3M folder and let us take the top one. But before I start it, check the output settings. Now it has detected Gravis Ultrasound, and we'll just leave it there. And actually I want to show you one more thing under options. We'll turn on 16-bit, and on line 3 you can also see that EMS is on. That means we are actually using EMS memory if ModMaster needs it. This is a big mod, so it takes a while to load. That was cool. let's just try one more. Wasn't that beautiful? 16-bit stereo running on a EuroPC 9.54 megahertz. We actually have one more thing to test. So let's turn off Gus. Again, I don't think we need to, but the last thing we are testing is the MIDI emulation. Yes, the PicoMEM 2 actually emulates a real MIDI synthesizer. So let's do that. MPU, and again it's 1. Now MIDI emulation is on port 300. I think that is a bug because it is on port 330. Again, Modmaster supports MIDI files too. So let's find a MIDI file and let's find something that the YouTube won't ban me for. Let's try Doom. Everybody knows the Doom music. Loading MIDI files take much longer than you should think. That was cool. We are now emulating a MIDI synthesizer on the PicoMEM 2. So, as I mentioned earlier, we are actually emulating 7 sound cards on the PicoMEM. We need to show how to set up sound. I've already shown how it's done in the setup, and we've shown how to turn on and off different emulation modes with PMInit, but we need to show the 2 lines in Autoexec.bat you need. And that is the middle 2 lines here, set blaster. You know that from before if you had a Sound Blaster card. These are the setting that works, at least for me. And you also need to set Ultra SND to these values. I know that they work. So that's basically everything you need to know to use sound emulation on the PicoMEM 2. Okay, back into the setup, and we need to check what's under the other menu. We can choose 2 things here basically, and that is network. Default is off. I have turned it on and I'm using port 300 and interrupt 3. And the other thing we can do here is turning USB host on, and we have already tested that. If you remember, we mounted a USB drive on the USB port. For that to work, the USB host has to be on. I've turned off a USB joystick because I don't have one connected. But I've also turned on the real-time clock. For now, you will need a DOS utility for the real-time clock to work together with MS-DOS. I'll show you that in a minute. But in later versions of the PicoMEM firmware, you only enable it and don't think more about it. So let's go back to DOS. The first thing I'm going to show you is the clock, how that works. There is a utility you can download from Freddy V, and that is called AST clock. If you run AST clock, it will communicate with the built-in real-time clock, and it will synchronize the clock with MS-DOS. Easy enough. You can, if you want to set it, you can start it with /R. I'm probably getting an error message because I've already done that in my Autoexec.bat. Then it loads the AST clock to memory resident, I guess the R is for. And then you can use time and date DOS commands to change the time and date. But next out is the network. So I've just turned on my Wi-Fi router that is just a few centimeters from me now, and to make sure it is found by the PicoMEM, I can press Ctrl+Shift+F1. You remember that shortcut from earlier, and there it actually says on line 3 Wi-Fi and the name of the network, and it's connected and it has a very strong signal, and it should be because it's like 30 centimeters from the PicoMEM. So now we know that that is working. Yeah, I almost forgot to set up the Wi-Fi SSID and the password. You just create a file on the SD card and you call it Wi-Fi, and you enter on line 1 the SSID and on line 2 the password. That's super easy. Then PicoMEM will connect to that network. But you also need some DOS drivers to make network work, and I'm using MTCP from Bruteman, and that's an excellent package of network tools. And the first thing I do is to load the driver. You can see on line 3 there, I'm loading the driver, which I downloaded from Freddy V. It's called PM2000.com, and it's enabled on port 60. That is not the port 300 as we chose in the menu. That's something completely different, and it will auto detect that it's using port 300. Just trust me, just use it like I'm doing here and it will work. Let's just try running it and see if everything works. It should ping, yes, and it works. And there it is. 3 out of 4 packages were correctly received. So that's how easy it is to use network. Of course, when network is started, you can use FTP commands or telnet commands or whatever you want to use. We have one more menu, and that's the tools menu. If I press enter on info, we get this information here. I can go down to device info and get even more information. You can see here what we have enabled, the EMS, the real-time clock, the Wi-Fi, Adlib, Tandy, and CMS. There is also a function here where you can dump a ROM. So if you want to dump the video ROM or whatever ROM you want to dump, you can dump that to a file. Actually did that automatically just by going into the menu here. And it has a memory test. Even tells us the speed. Well, I think that is it. I don't feel I have forgotten anything. I could have shown you other things to do with the PMEMM driver, but I'm sure you'll figure that out yourself. I didn't show you how to connect a mouse or a USB joystick, but connecting the joystick is just connecting it, no drivers, anything. And using a mouse, I'm sure you know how to install a mouse driver, so I don't need to show that. So I think I'll end the video here, but as a cliffhanger, I can mention that Freddy V is also working on CD-ROM emulation and other things we can do with the OLED display and the buttons on the OLED display. If you liked this video, and I know you did, please don't forget to subscribe. It will help me a lot. I will make more videos on the PicoMEM, that is a promise. Thank you for watching.